track the past, order the present, and design the future.
Somebody's singing really poorly through my wall right now. Let's see how this goes.
Let's start with calendar review.
Oh, they don't sound good. Bless their heart, they don't sound good.
Many of these tips can actually apply to whatever productivity system you use in your own life.
Oh my god, there's a group of them. I want to talk about real-life dump stats, personal integrity, becoming better friends and better people. But first, I want to talk about jocks. So, and you'll forgive some background noise. I think it's a windy night in chilly Brooklyn this December. I want to talk about scheduling D&D games, scheduling RPGs, scheduling time with friends, right? This one is for the folks who find themselves saying, ha, the number one barrier, the reason I can't get a campaign on, I can't schedule games. That's what we always hear. If you go on a forum, hey y'all, what's keeping y'all from starting your next campaign, that next big adventure? Scheduling. Every time comes up as the big answer, right? And so I want to talk about that. I want to dig into the roots of that problem and some very tactical, strategic advice for addressing it. And in order to do that, the first thing I have to talk about is less specific and more values-based, which is I want to talk about personal integrity. This is going to be an important touchstone, right? What does this mean? What is integrity?
Wait, can I do a second take?
You want to do a second take?
Yeah, I want to do a second take.
You want to do it again?
Yeah.
Well, now you've read it once, so yeah, you can do it again. Okay, ready? Now let them do it. Here we go.
What makes us say of any discourse that it has or that it lacks integrity? Usually, we can answer this in terms of whether such a discourse is really talking about what it says it is talking about. Dr. Rowan Williams, 104th Archbishop of Canterbury, on theological argumentation.
Quite good. Integrity means when something is about what it says it's about, right? A person with integrity says, I'm about this, or I'm going to do this, and then they do it. And this is really important for scheduling. I'm gonna take another tack right here, right? I saw a Reddit thread. Somebody showed up on Reddit and they were like, for those of y'all who grew up before cell phones were a thing, maybe you were young before the ubiquity of cell phones, how did you guys keep appointments? How did you schedule, like, yeah, let's meet for coffee and then coordinate the details? How was that done? The answer to this question that was most upvoted and totally right was you had to keep your word. You know, you had to have integrity. If somebody said to you, hey, I want to get coffee. If somebody said to you, I want to go see a movie, you would have to go, okay, how's Friday night? Yeah, Friday night, I'll meet you a half an hour before the movie outside the theater. And you better write that down because that person's going to show up to that theater and they're going to be waiting there for you. And you're not going to be able to text them an hour beforehand because you want to do something else now. Oh, I'm sick. That's not an option. Or if it is, if you flake, if you don't show up, that person's not going to ghost you. You're going to see that person again and they're going to go, hey, what happened? You're going to have to look that person in the face when they go like, hey, I was embarrassed and upset. You didn't show. And so integrity was a skill you had to cultivate. There are a couple of things that make this tough for us, and one is modern life, and two is being nerds. Being nerds, being us nerdy folk, us geeks who like RPGs, who want to play imagination games with your buddies, make worlds and play games in them. Modern life and being nerds. Why modern life? Because of the reason I just mentioned, right? Cell phones. Cell phones help us turn scheduling integrity into a dump stat. A dump stat, the thing we don't invest in. The thing we don't build up. We say, oh, I don't need to spend a lot of time building that up. Because it's a habit. You need to form yourself to it. You need to do it regularly in order to develop it. And when you got the cell phone that allows you to press the I'm canceling button without having to look somebody in the face, right? Without having to offer up a good excuse, you just punch it out, send it, and forget it. It makes integrity a little bit, it makes that kind of, like I said, a dump stat. Something you don't need to put as much stake in. The stakes aren't high. And the other thing is being nerds, being geeks. Why is that? I heard somebody say something, I forget who it was, I think it was probably Matt Colville. Whoever it was offered a definition of the nerd that said, a nerd or a geek is just somebody who wasn't so tightly wound into the mainstream culture that they developed other interests. They didn't have to like sports. They weren't a jock. That's a mainstream interest. The whole country loves football, right? But for whatever reason, maybe because they chose different or because they were excluded for many reasons, the nerd has to find something else to like, something else to invest in. So nerds and geeks end up on the outside of the fabric of mainstream interests and behaviors. They behave different. They like different stuff than most people are into. But that also brings up some other problems. And I'm going to speak for myself here, because I'm not speaking about nerds like some other group. I'm talking about my people. I'm number one. If I don't want to speak for anybody else, I'm going to speak for me, right? When you're outside, when you feel like you grow up outside of the super normal mainstream life of the town, life of the high school or whatever, there are some things you miss out on. Tragically. In ways that were cool and in ways that were not. And no, I'm not saying like, oh, you miss out on dates, you miss out on prom, you miss out on being cool or attractive. Nah, like plenty of nerds and geeks are sexy and rad and have great personalities and stuff, right? They were all at prom. My prom limo had a guy in Hogwarts dress robe in it. And that wasn't cool at the time. That was him. That's how he went. Oh man, I can't even believe I mentioned that. They had dates. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about missing out on is certain forms of personal formation that come with mainstream culture, like what jocks get as a part of being a part of sports. And I think scheduling integrity is one of the skills here. I'm going to explain what I mean, right? Like jocks, right? Those aren't nerds, right? Those are the jocks. That's what we say. One of the things jocks are really used to saying from a young age is, I can't do that. I have practice. Oh, you want to hang out? I can't do that, man. I have practice. Yeah, I know it's just a game, but I've got to show up for that. Right? Oh, you want to see a movie? Oh, Friday? No, dude. 3 to 6 p.m., I'm at practice. I can't do it. Or coach will yell at me. That's an interesting thing about sports, right? Especially for young men. Sports are one of the few parts of young life where it will put older men in your life who can hold you accountable to things you chose who aren't your father and your teacher. Because your teacher can punish you and stuff, but you got to be in the room with the teacher, right? You don't have to be a part of football. You chose, and it's a game. It's a game, man. But you chose it. And so you've got this older guy in your life as a young guy playing sports. You got this older guy who's like, hey, you can't miss this because you said you'd make it. I got to hold you accountable to that, right? And I think that's a valuable form of formation for a young person that I, as a nerd, I missed out on. I avoided sports for that reason sometimes. I didn't want to be accountable like that. And I became a young adult and even past a young adult with shitty scheduling habits. There's some other stuff that's not that great about sports culture or whatever, but we got to admit that that's a skill that sports can develop in a young person. Right? You chose to play the game. You got to show up to what you committed to. Or another archetype that's against the nerd archetype, right? Is the sorority girl, right? We all talk shit about the sorority girls. You know what sorority girls have? Busy social calendars. To survive in that world, to thrive in that world, you need to be able to balance a complicated ledger of social obligations to attend. Those girls have planners, calendars wall to wall. They know how to make time for everything. Everything they can make time for. It's going to be personal, but I'm going to go for it. My fiance has a younger sister who kind of fits that cliche a little bit. She was in sororities. She's got lots of friends from college that even though she graduated, she still keeps up with, right? If that girl was planning your campaigns, you would have been through the Great Pendragon campaign by now. You would have played Masks of Nyarlathotep twice. You would have played it on Pulp, and then you would have gone through it again vanilla to see if you could get your character to survive the whole way through. You would have been through all those campaigns by now. Those girls can plan. Those girls can keep a calendar. And so, for me, I had a lot going on when I was young, but I didn't have that going on when I was young. And so I escaped a lot of the need to develop calendar skills. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. If you've got to this point in the video and been like, yeah, man, that isn't me. I'm not good at scheduling stuff. Like, I don't know what I really need to do to nail it. Specifically on the TTRPG front, like, this isn't going to be a video about, like, the typical time management YouTube videos. This is specifically for TTRPG players. This is about how to shape your campaigns and shape your sessions and behave as a GM and as a player in order to, like, get these sessions on the clock. So let's talk about it one by one. And just before I begin the practical advice, I want to say that the reason I'm talking about this integrity thing is because it's an essential ingredient in maintaining relationships in life and for gathering for play. It's so important that when we make plans, when we make firm agreements to gather with one another and then cancel, it hurts our ability to, not permanently, but it hinders our effort to sustain life-giving relationships. And if you're somebody who routinely finds yourself making plans and then canceling them, or you know somebody like that, I think we need to say and identify that is a integrity problem. Not because we want to shit on that person or say they're a bad friend or discard them. Nothing like that, right? This is not a personal failing that you have to berate anybody for. But what it is, without a doubt, is a nearly insurmountable organizing problem. If you set out to be a person who wants to play regular games, but cannot address or even identify an integrity problem like this as it emerges in those around you, there will be failure, there will be disappointment, and there will be burnout. The good news is that we don't have to be like stuck in that, and that is not a terminal diagnosis, and we can get out of it, and we can do a lot of things to nurture integrity in one another, because it's going to make us stronger, it's going to make us better friends, it's going to make us brilliant friends, and it's going to get the fucking games on the calendar, so we can play, man. Because that's what I'm getting to. If you're a person who's saying, I don't want to be necessarily that kind of person, I don't want to be like somebody who's working a calendar and keeping people accountable. Oh, you're taking it way too seriously? Oh, well, that attitude is going to be a barrier for you. Another anecdote is I heard a couples therapist one time say she was counseling a couple, and the couple never made time to, God, how R-rated am I going to be on this cast? They never made time to be intimate. They never did it, right? They never made it happen for them. And the therapist was like, well, why not just put it on the calendar? Put on the calendar, on Tuesday, we're going to X. And the couple went, well, that doesn't sound very romantic, right? That doesn't sound romantic, sexy and fun. And the therapist said, well, your current alternative is way worse, right? Like, well, what do you got going on currently? Sounds like your current idea, your other idea, it doesn't sound very sexy or romantic either, right? So try it. Woo! Okay. Practical advice. I hope on the YouTube or something like that, I'll put like chapters in here so people will scan it for practical advice. They'll find right here. Practical advice. I'm going to go through a list of values and steps here and things that will help you always have good games. 1. Work the calendar. Always be working the calendar and have one session on the calendar. Work the calendar. Always have one session. At the start of a campaign, sit down with your players, pop open your calendars, and get the first few sessions on the books. Even if it means months ahead. Always have one session on the calendar that everyone is committed to and everyone is ready to go on, even if it's further out. Okay, I'm looking at Saturday the 5th. I don't know if I can do Saturday the 5th. If you don't know, it's off the table. How's the 8th? Well, it's kind of up in the air. Well, when will you know? Not for a long time. Then the 8th is gone. How's the 10th? Yeah, I can make, everybody's going, yeah, I can make that. Great, it's the 10th. And then that's the session. It's on the calendar. Pick a date. Can we make it? No. Pick the next date. Can we make it? No. Pick the next date. If someone's maybe you can go, can you make the commitment for now and try to keep it and let us know as soon as you have to cancel? That's good enough. Nail it down. But Jack, what if somebody has to cancel? Fine. They tell you as soon as they know, hey guys, the date we committed to, I have to cancel it. What's our rule? Always have a session on the calendar. Move, baby. Get the next session down immediately. Don't go like, okay guys, we'll figure it out. No, you don't have a session on the calendar, you've got a problem. Immediately go like, okay, start the process over again from the top until you get it on. A maybe, again, a wishy-washy, we don't know, can we keep it, that's 4 days from now is valueless compared to if you can't meet until 3 weeks, but you know that date is set in stone. Get the date that's set in stone. There's a couple tools here that can help. One is called Doodle. One is called When is Good. These are apps where you can kind of like go online and list out a bunch of dates, Monday through Friday, and everybody can go in and like vote, like a poll, and then it'll come up with a good time. But whatever works for you, I find the best thing to do is just to get in the room, right, and start to what I call working the calendar, which is just going down the dates and saying which can we nail in, and always having one. And the only other thing I'd add is it's always good to have a separate channel where you're doing your scheduling. So, for example, don't make your comms channel, your communications channel where you talk about every game thing, your only method of record keeping, because you don't want scheduling to get lost. So for me, I always have a group chat. It's all IRL games for me. A group chat and Google Calendar invites. That way everything's in two places. Because someday somebody's going to say to you, oh shit, I don't look at the group chat often. I wish I had this as a GCal invite. Otherwise I would have kept it. Head that off the past. Just do that now. Number 2, ask your players what their biggest barriers are up front and ahead of time during this process and continually, right? All of us have little scheduling barriers. All of us have these things that make it tough for us to schedule anything. Games, yes, but anything, right? And for some of them, they're big, and for some of them, they're very small, right? Some of us are raising kids, and some of us just like need more time to chill with our partner or whatever, right? The fact of the matter is everyone's reasons are valid. And yet for many of us, our reasons for being busy can also be sources of immense shame. Everybody hates to break it to friends that we don't want to schedule a game for reasons big and small. If it's, I'm caring for an ailing parent that day. Or even if it's like, I just don't feel like scheduling a game after an evening of grading papers. Even if I'm totally free that evening, I know I'm going to be burnt out and I want to veg, right? I don't want to use my brain to like play world building games and answer like fucking paint the scene questions and manage a level up or whatever, right? Like, and still we are embarrassed. And so it's very difficult for us to break through that. So what you can do, help each other out, help your players by asking up front, okay, what typically gets in the way of your ability to schedule? What are your biggest barriers? And have it out and make it clear to your players, you don't have to be ashamed, you don't have to be embarrassed. I want to know so that I can work with you. And we will work it out. Here are some of the answers I've gotten in the past month. These are all in a blog post. I'm pulling these off of a blog post I wrote, which covers some of this territory, but I think this audio stuff is the better material. Here are some of the answers I've gotten recently. This is real life shit while planning like D&D, my Brindlewood Bay campaign, some of the stuff I'm doing, Trophy Dark I'm going to run. Here's some of the answers I've gotten. One person said, I have to travel for work for a week out of every month. Like 5 to 7 days out of every. I know it is in advance, but like I can't do a weekly game because I'm always going to have to miss a whole week every month. Another person said, like I could make the game, but it ends. You want to end at 7? I straight up have a Zoom call at 7, and like I need to do an important. It's like a work meeting at 7 p.m. So I would need to literally like take up a whole room at your apartment to immediately after the session and have silence in there, and I would need private use of that room for a whole hour. Another person said to me, honestly, that Saturday is the last Saturday of the month of like October. It's going to be beautiful, and I'm not going to New York winters are fucking brutal. This person was like, I want to like go hiking. I want to be outside. I just don't want to be inside. I'm going to be inside all winter. It sucks. None of those answers that I got from those people are insurmountable. What these people need from you, your friends who want to hang out with you, but who have all of these things weighing on them, here's what they need to hear from you. Got it. We'll make it work. No problem. Thanks for letting me know. I value that. That's cool. That's cool with me. And then work the calendar. How's the 3rd? You're taking care of your dad? How's the 6th? You're grading papers? How's the 7th? No shade. I'll keep naming dates until we're like 2 months out from now, right? You have to relinquish. Oh, let's check in regularly. Oh, let's make it soon. No, solid. Everybody here is going to keep a commitment even if it's 3 weeks out. Work the calendar. Number 1 is work the calendar. Number 2 is ask what your players' biggest barriers are. Number 3 is stick to the agreed time. Keep it tight and keep it reliable. Now, you might think I mean make sure you start on time. And that's true, right? But you want to actually stick to your end time, I would say more strongly. I wrote here in the blog, stick to the scheduled time like your very life depends on it, and let all socialization happen before or after. Violate those boundaries, right? The game is 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Start playing after 9, and most people won't complain, but they also won't trust your ability to commit to your session times anymore. And when that becomes the case, they will more strongly consider turning these opportunities down in the future. So here's my example for this. I'll lay this right out so you know what I'm talking about. Some enchanted evening, you'll be gathered for your 7 to 9 session, right? And you're going to get to 9, and everybody's going to be like, y'all, I got tons of time. Let's keep going. And everybody's going to be like, yeah, what the hell? This is this is great. I'm having a great time. I want to see. It sounds like we just got to get through this combat encounter and we're going to be good, right? This is so fun. Can everybody stay? We can all stay. Let's stay. And you will. You'll all stay. You'll all keep playing until like 10:30 or 11 p.m. This needs to happen once. Just once. And from then on, your players will never, in their gut, trust your end time. Not necessarily anymore. Your players will start to think of the weekly 2-hour session as a, quote, 2-hour game. When really it's an actually 4-hour game, right? And the next time, when they really only have 7 to 9 p.m. to commit to that game, they will look at your ask, hey, can you meet 7 to 9? And they'll think in their head, he might, but I don't want to be the spoil sport. What if sometimes everybody wants to go long, right? And if everybody wants to go long, I don't want to be the spoil sport who like walks out. I don't want to miss something, right? And they might start to turn it down for fear of all the attendant anxieties that come with having to leave, quote, early, right? So don't do this. Like, just avoid this entirely. Keeping to time is a very important way of ensuring that your organizing has integrity. So as much fun as you're having, end on time. Buy-in, one of the things you'll notice is that buy-in is an incredibly important theme across all of these, right? The best way to get somebody to commit to something is by stating upfront what it's going to be and then not making it be something else. It's another word for having integrity, but buy-in is another way of putting it, right? Respecting buy-in. I told you it's going to be 7 to 9 on this date. From 7 to 9 on that date, that's what it's going to be. You follow me? You follow my meaning? I think so. Can you hear the background noise? I think somebody in an adjacent apartment. What you're doing right now is you're listening to somebody record in their apartment, and somebody is like scream singing on the other side of a wall. So I hope he doesn't come through. We'll see. Number 4, run shorter campaigns. I don't have a lot to say here, but like, I think one important part of working the calendar is it is much easier to get anybody to commit to a campaign of any kind when they know generally how long that commitment goes on for, right? This is another part of getting buy-in and working the calendar, is letting everybody know ahead of time how long something might run for, right? For Brindlewood Bay, I got this Brindlewood Bay campaign going. I'm about 4 sessions in. No, I'm 3. Fourth session is a week from this Thursday. It's locked in stone on the calendar. I just sent out a group text about it. And the Google calendar invite went out too. I told them all when they started, y'all, this is probably going to be 12 to 14 sessions. Could go to 15. I don't want that to happen. Could be as short as 10, but the people who made the game and all the people who play it say that it goes about 12 sessions. Can we commit to that, right? These kinds of asks are much easier than what I hear out there for new campaigns, right? I'm guilty of this, you know. When I started my Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign, I was like, hey, y'all, it's long as hell. How's every Sunday sound, right? Selling people on indeterminately long commitments is much more difficult than selling people on shorter, discrete commitments. So if you're trying to pitch somebody on a new campaign or a new game system, it's less attractive to say, hey, do you want to switch games, than it would be to say, hey, I want to run another game. I'm thinking 4 to 6 sessions, and then maybe at the end we'll reevaluate where we want to go next. What do you think? So that one's a shorter one. Run shorter campaigns, name the commitment, and see where it goes from there. Another short one here is smaller groups. Run with smaller groups. You might be tempted to run for, when I was growing up, everything was like 4 to 6 players, and sometimes it would get like bigger than that. And this would have been like 2000, let's call it like 1 or 2, right? When I was young. The question of like, can you run for just 1 or 2 people? It was like not an easy answer to provide, right? Like, I didn't know. These days, it's laughable, right? Like, of course, there's so many brilliant games that are designed to be played, sometimes solo, but with smaller groups. There are games, Brindlewood Bay, I'm playing now, some storytelling games powered by the Apocalypse games. Iron Sworn is one of these games. Even some traditional RPGs. I think this about, like, Call of Cthulhu 7th Edition, where I think, like, the sweet spot is 2 or 3 players. Run with smaller groups and make it a fun habit and exciting thing to run shorter sessions with smaller groups, because it is, one, I think it's fun in a new way, but 2, it is just simply, oh my God, guys, it is so much easier, this should go without saying, to get 2 or 3 other people to work the calendar with you and get a date on the books than it is with 6 people when it's impossible. So there's one other thing I want to add here that wasn't controversial. I think the next thing I want to say here is more controversial, which is a principle I believe in, is that everyone must be there. So we don't play with missing players. Now, a bunch of you guys are going to be saying, I solved this. Here's your problem. Your problem is I have 6 players and just anybody can miss at any time. And it's like, if you want to run an open table like that where everyone who can come and go, except for the GM, who is literally always on, go with God. I've got a note at the end of this about open tables. I'm not as bullish on open tables as a lot of people are, but for a number of reasons. But go for it. I do not like it. I think that you should work harder on creating a discrete group that is tight, that is accountable to show up. You'll get consistent storylines. And this is so important. When you take a week off, when anybody takes a week off or has to take a break for a while, we all take a break. And I've been running Rhyme as kind of an open table, right? 5 players and I'll let up to like 2 miss. There's a lot of problems with that, but one is literally the math works out so that I am the one with the least amount of time off. Because you can all take breaks willy-nilly. When I take a break, everybody gets a break. But when you take a break, you get a break. And that's an imbalance it's not fun. I don't think it sets us up for the right kind of relationship. I'm going to readdress this at the end. So I'm running through it again. I've got more to go. 1, work the calendar. 2, ask your players what their biggest barriers are and work with them. 3, stick to the agreed time like it's your very life depending on it. Keep it tight and keep it reliable. 4, run shorter campaigns and name the commitment. Not, hey guys, you want to meet every Sunday forever, but hey guys, I'm thinking 4 to 6 sessions. I'm thinking 10 sessions. I'm thinking 15. How does that sound? Do we like that? Good. What was that? 4? 5. Smaller groups. I've got 2 more for you guys. Well, kind of 3, but 2. Cast a net. Not castanets, but cast out a net. This is simple. Put out wide calls and run groups with new kinds of people and new people in general, right? Go out and advertise your game. Put out open calls. Don't be afraid to mix it up, especially if you are trying to try out a new system. Like, so many people I know out there are trying to try out a new system and trying to convert their 5e players. Stop trying to convert your 5e players. Like, just find people who don't play TTRPGs yet and be like, hey, do you want to play a really cool game? It's called Mothership. Do you want to play a really cool game? It's called Into the Odd. I think you'd like it. Oh, you don't even know. Do you know what D&D is? It's kind of like that. You'll have fun. I'm going to run that for you. Number whichever this is by now, right? Probably 7 or 8. Deputize helpers. There is no reason that the DM has to organize the time, the place, and all other logistics, especially if you're not the person who, picked the campaign or the game system, right? It's just ridiculous to think that the GM has to be the scheduler. You can... Recently, somebody said to me, I want to do a particular pirate-themed game. Like, they were like, me and these other people, it would be so cool if we could do, a pirate game. And my message was simple. You pick the place, you find the time that works for you, pick your players, give me a week's notice, work the calendar with me, and I will run that game for you anytime. but you got to work the calendar. You got to send out the reminders. You got to put the group together. And then you leave it alone. Is that player, is she going to do that? Is she going to throw that together? She hasn't done it yet, but like I set it and forget it. I delegated that. And now in the back of my head, I'm not like, oh man, do I have to think about running that one pirate themed thing for that one session? Like, she will sort that out if she wants to sort that out. If you can't deputize other people to do the scheduling, there are other jobs you can give out, like food or world building tasks. Food. The one thing I run the Sunday D&D game, and one thing I say is I'm always like, y'all got to feed each other and me. That's it, man. Like, I'll do all the rest of this, like, cool tablecraft stuff and the paper minis and the cool setups and the mats and all this D&D 5e prep, set piece battles. But y'all got to work food out amongst yourselves and me. I don't have time to balance encounters and everyone's food allergies, like, literally at the same time. I can't do that. Or you could delegate world building tasks. If prep is murdering you, assign like a magic items designer, right? You can give that away if they're willing to take it. I think that this goes against the common wisdom because organizing skills have become like too GM concentrated. I'll give you an example of this. I remember the first time I listened to Dungeons and Daddies, the podcast. It's like an actual play podcast with dads. It's really good.
Dungeons and Daddies is a rowdy, horny, violent podcast for grown-ups.
They do an amazing job. Anyway, something like, I was like not getting something for the first few episodes. I was like, oh, wait, who's who in this? And I realized, and I think I'm right about this, the guy who like hosts the podcast, who like introduces everybody at the top of the, hi, my name is such and such, and you're listening to Dungeons and Daddies, is not the GM for the campaign. Like, the DM is actually a different guy who like gets introduced by the host. The host is just one of the players. And like, as a lifelong D&D guy, that blew my mind. I'm like, whoa, like the GM isn't doing fucking everything? Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, why would they be? And the last thing I have to say is become a person who's serious about scheduling. Have a calendar, work the calendar, keep to time, delegate the work. I think there's this thing with TTRPGs that I don't like, and this is why I'm saying this, right? There's this thing about TTRPGs I don't like, and it's this. I think maybe it's a function of insecurity around nerdiness, or maybe like an ironic stance towards our own interests, but people feel a little weirdly comfortable with the social standard that a tabletop role-playing game session is something nobody should have to accommodate or make time for, even when you've previously agreed to do it, right? Like, we all have emergencies, but plenty of people make time week in and week out to simply not miss certain engagements with great regularity. Nobody would find it socially acceptable to cancel coffee plans made well in advance, like over and over again, or like up to half of the time you make those plans, right? It's just a baseline for being able to relate to one another that we keep those commitments. But it's somehow simply normal for people to cancel on game groups in this way all of the time. And I was one of those people too. I was one of those people where if somebody was like, I'm going to miss it, even though I said I would, I'd be like, I'd be there, and I'm going to cancel now. I'd be like, haha, okay. Right? Here's what I would say to you as a sort of a final challenge here. When somebody says to you some half-assed reason for canceling on, let's not talk about TTRPGs. Let's just talk about plans in general. Let's talk about something so trivial like coffee, right? If your friend is routinely canceling on you and you're accommodating that by being like, haha, it's cool, I don't care, I'm going to go out there and say you are not being a good friend to them. Because what I think I've needed a lot in my life is for some people to say like, hey man, actually that's not cool. Like I want to be close to you, and your behavior makes it difficult to be close to you. And you keep saying you want to be close with me too and friends with me. So like, let's make this actually work. We always hear this, right? Like when people talk about TTRPGs and scheduling, well, we're all busy adults. We're all busy adults. Busy adults keep calendars. Busy adults learn to make a commitment a month in advance so that you don't have to cancel frequently. And when busy adults are under stress, they let people know up front. They add more tools to their tool belt, right? Because being where you say you're going to be is part of what being an adult with adult integrity fundamentally means. Busy adults say, I want to remind you of what you agreed to. And busy adults say this to themselves when they need to hear it. It is actually an act of radical care to hold our relationships accountable in this way. Much like establishing boundaries, right? Safety tools. You talk about safety tools in games. I don't talk about safety tools much, but there's a lot of people who are smarter than me who are covering that topic. Affirming commitments is another way of saying, I want this relationship to work. Tangentially, I wonder if the current epidemic of adult loneliness that gets talked about a lot in the U.S., the crisis in a U.S. adult friendship, has anything to do with the broader cultural inability to nurture these exact skills and treat scheduling integrity like a dump stat. Right? It's not an evil thing to do. It's not a bad thing to do. It's not a wrong thing to do. It doesn't make us bad people. But I think we need to get better at it to play more games. Right? If you are listening to this and being like, I want to be that kind of person. I want to be that way. Take it from somebody who didn't used to be that way. This is the call to action. And this is the call to action, and you know why you should listen to this one? Because it's not productivity hustle bullshit. It's not, I think you should keep a Google Calendar so that you can go on more job interviews and advance your career success, because I could give a fuck about that for you. What I really want for you is to be closer with your friends and play more games. To play more games. Recently, I was on a day hike with a friend. It was one of my players. And I was like, hey, are you ready for this week's session? And she went, oh, shit, is that this Thursday? Oh, I can't. I accidentally scheduled a really important thing that day. Like, I just scheduled it yesterday. Was that really this week? In my gut, I wanted to go, oh, yeah, no worries. We'll move the time. Instead, I did a hard thing. I did something that was uncomfortable. I didn't really want to do, and it felt difficult. And I said, yeah, man, like, yes, we all agreed 3 weeks ago that we'd hold this exact evening in our calendar. Like, that's the night, man. Like, that's the night you said. We all said it. We've been saying it. Like, that's the night. And you know what she did? She heard that, and she took a second, and she was like, you know what? Okay, this other thing that I put on that at the same time, I can actually move that. It's actually not even going to be a problem. Sorry. I just didn't want the awkwardness of talking to those people. But the initial commitment's with you, and I'll be there. I didn't handle it this way to be a dick, or to be overly serious, or to be stern, or act like her fucking dad or whatever, or to push this person away. I did it as an act of love. Because I want to see them more often. I want to sit across the table from them. I want to roll dice with them. And you know what? The fucking session happened. And then the other thing she had on the same night, she just moved that 1 week later. I'm seeing them again on Saturday. I can't wait. The relationship is strong. I want that for everyone who hears this. That's what I got, folks. That's the whole show. Jeez, I've been recording a long time. I bet you, if you're listening now, if you looked at like how long this ever came out to, 45 plus minutes of podcast on scheduling and went like, yeah, I'm down, and listened to the whole thing, congrats. I've got a lot more coming. I've got a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I'm going to do one on soundtracking your games. How to like find good soundtrack music for the background. Like little tips like that I think are fun. But I've also got like a lot on. I want to do the exploration of. I've talked about an exploration of intuition, the role of intuition, and the shared imaginative space. Paint the scene questions. I want to get into an exploration of that. Bring on some guests. So that's that. Thank you guys for joining me. Oh, my name is Jack Edward. And I am at jacke.substack.com. I'm here on YouTube. Shoot me an email, like, subscribe. Thanks for being with me. Go out, make worlds, play games in them with your friends, find your people, and good night.